Welcome, this is Chris Smith, known on the internet by many as Shambles Guru, and I'm here in North Thailand and I'm particularly excited about a project that you're right at the beginning of now with us, a series of podcasts, and we're planning this series to last for about 14 podcasts, but it may vary as we go on. And it's going to be called it is called the Relationship Manifesto. And sitting next to me, and as this is an audio recording, you won't be able to see him, but sitting next to me is Dr. Stephen Whitehead. Stephen, welcome.
Hi, Chris. Welcome. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And Stephen, well, this podcast is going to be focused mainly. It's going to be totally focused on the work that he's doing. He's a well-known author already, and we'll tell you a bit about himself in a moment. And the Relationship Manifesto is related to a book, which you're also at the beginning of now. So for listeners, this is doubly exciting. But I think Stephen, I'm going to call you Stephen rather than Dr. Whitehead. Sounds a bit formal.
Forget the doctor. Stephen's
okay.
Natural.
Brilliant. And Stephen, maybe you could introduce listeners. Tell them a bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the listeners.
Well, I'm residing out here in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, a beautiful city, for those of you who've never been here. I'm retired from my university in the UK, Keele University, where I worked there for 12 years. And before that, I worked in further education at a place called Thomas Danby College in Leeds. Welcome and hello to all my ex-students. There's many of them around the place, and people I worked with over the years. Over the last 10, 12 years, I've written a number of books, academic books and mainstream popular books, and they've done well. I'm pleased and been lucky to be able to say that. But this new book, this is one that I've got a big personal investment in, the Relationship Manifesto, because it's a culmination of a lifetime of relationships, my own, with others, obviously, but also observing, researching, and pulling together ideas. My academic work is all in the area of gender, identity, men and masculinities, and I've had popular books out that have looked at different types of men and modern relationships. But I want to bring a lot of these ideas together in the Relationship Manifesto, so this is where we are, and this is why this is a particularly unique and interesting venture. You
jumped straight into the book. I was hoping to get some of the nitty-gritty on the background of you.
Okay.
You haven't been completely honest about all the things that you've done, have you? It's of course you're a much from the time we've talked earlier. You've got a much wider experience than just the academic world. You're not purely an academic, are you?
No, I'm not purely an academic. Okay, jumping straight in. I've been married 5 times. I've had many relationships. I've had many casual affairs. I've lived the life, and I still am doing. I have had many careers. I didn't actually go into academia until my middle 40s, when I finished a PhD at Leeds University.
Oh, I want to hear about you ran a pub.
I ran a pub, yeah. I ran the...
I'm a bit envious about you running a pub.
No, that was a good time. That's with my first wife, Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary.
And that was in the UK, right?
That was in... Yeah, first of all, I joined a company called Tetley Walker. I ran the Cavalier. I was one of the Cavalier restaurant managers in the early 70s, mid-70s. Then moved over to Leeds, and I was landlord of 2 pubs in Leeds from 1977. First one was the Jubilee in the city centre of Leeds, and the second one was the Woodside Tavern. The story briefly is while I was in the Woodside Tavern as the landlord manager from 1980 to 1986, I got into running, got into athletics, and I became an athletics coach, and that got me into teaching and lecturing on athletics, and that subsequently got me into further education, where I was teaching and lecturing in leisure and sport at this college in Leeds, and that got me onto the academic career ladder.
It's interesting because you seem to have had a career progression which is only starting to happen in the world now. Like you're not working at Toyota for life anymore, or Sony right. for life. You go from one job to another. But it sounds like your whole life has been a bit sort of, I've been a publican. I've cracked that. Now what's the next? That's the next thing. Right.
And the interesting thing, and why this really comes back to relationships, is because each of these segments of my life, there's been a woman involved. There's been a major partner, a significant other, And these significant others, there were Rosemary, Sally, Deborah, Sawana, and now Mam. And there's been others along that road, along that journey. But these 5 significant others were each of them represented in their own unique way that segment of my life that was in at the time. I'm hoping not to have any more segments. I'm hoping I've come to the last one.
Right.
And because it can be exhausting. It's also can be financially debilitating. But in the end, it's been a fantastic journey, and it's given me both the knowledge, experience, understanding, and the impetus to write about the relationship manifesto book. But it's it's been a great life, and I'm still in it, and it's good to be out here in Chiang Mai with it.
There is a blog we've set up to parallel these podcasts called it's at http:// as you may have guessed, relationshipmanifesto.posterous.com. But they'll be in the show notes wherever these show notes are posted, and in there we'll have a post for each of the 14 programs, and also there'll be an opportunity for you to leave comments yourself. And we're both hoping that you will, if you're listening to this, you'll leave some of your views and comments on that particular blog. Stephen, I have to ask this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask this.
Ask anything. You know I'll answer. I've no inhibitions.
Okay, right. That's the end of me now. Okay. Who is this written for? Because I know one of the chapters. Well, is this written for men or for women?
That is a key question. When you're writing anything, you always have an audience in mind. When you're writing an academic book, you have an audience of academic peers in mind, or students who'll buy the book. For a mainstream popular book, I have to say that most of the audience for these sorts of books, relationship type books, they're women of all different ages, but particularly women of 25 to 45. So in that respect, this book is for that, if you like, that market segment, that social group. But if men don't read it, then it hasn't worked, because the point about modern relationships is they have to be approached by both parties. In the past, it was mostly women who did most of the emotional labor in a relationship, and men sort of floated alongside in the expectation or hope that it would turn out okay, because women would carry that emotional load. In the modern world, that idea is going, because women won't stay in a relationship for any length of time that isn't equitable, isn't balanced, and that means emotional balance as well. So I want men to read it. If women just read it, that's fine, and I know that's the biggest audience, but I would hope that every woman who eventually buys this book will make sure her partner or lover or boyfriend also reads it, because men have to wake up to what's going on in modern relationships.
Both of us living in Southeast Asia now.
Yeah.
So I've just asked which gender would be reading it. What about which culture? Is the manifesto going to be Western, or is it going to be a global?
Well, the book that I wrote, my academic books have all gone global, so there is that visibility in the academic world. The Many Faces of Men came out in 2004, published by Random House. That was eventually translated into 15, 16 languages, so that certainly went global, from China to Russia to America and across Europe. The idea of the Relationship Manifesto, it has to be global, because what we're seeing in relationships, in the changing character of intimate sexual relationships now, is that it's not just happening in the US or France or the UK. I'm seeing it here in Thailand, I'm seeing it in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore. Globalization, I don't want to get sociologically clever on this, but so globalization is driving it, and globalization by definition is covering the whole world, and it's impacting on everybody. So you've got a situation in Japan, for example, where women are not getting married. Those women who are married are not having children. There's a in all the developed world, we're seeing more divorces, fewer marriages, decline in the birth rate, particularly to married couples. We're seeing the end of the nuclear family, pretty much. All sorts of new family formations emerging, and this is rapid. It's happening now, and it's also driven by the internet, which is another phenomenon. You know, when I wrote one book, it was the on popular relationships back in 2003. The idea of people dating on the internet was considered a bit nerdy, a bit odd. Not anymore.
Yes.
You know, anybody who's looking at going for dating into a relationship is likely to use the internet now, or certainly 95%.
Yes, and we'll probably expand that. I think as we go through the podcast, I'm going to bring that gender issue up, and also the cultural issue.
Sure.
Up, and because it would be interesting to know who's listening to this. Is this being listened to by those in the West, or is it being listened to by wherever in the world? And if you are listening, do use the comments on the blog and let us know, because we'd be very interested in that.
Certainly here in Thailand, for example, as you well know, Chris, it's a very sexualized culture, but no one wants to talk about it, and consequently you've got people coming in and out of relationships in Southeast Asia, but the culture here is very conservative, so people don't like to share their feelings or emotions, either with their partner or even with a member of the same sex.
Yes.
In the West, of course, we don't have that inhibited culture. We have a culture where we're more open, where we are expressive, we're more, we want to share and want to engage in these questions. But I see that change now happening in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
And it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it does bring pressure. It does bring pressure on relationships.
I think this is going to come up in some of your 12 points. Because you have the 12. Well, how did you decide on the 12 points? Well, the 12. As a reminder, if for listeners, you can actually see the 12 points on the relationshipmanifesto.posterous.com blog. So we're not going to read them out here. You can see them there. But where do they come from? Do you remember? Do you remember the moment you thought about this? You said, "I'm going to write this." Do you remember that?
I don't remember the. Yes, I do actually. How this came about? This was one of those eureka moments, because I was approached by the BBC middle of last year, to comment on a radio program about relationships, and I commented on it by email. I gave them some ideas, and it was from my response to the BBC, who I've done many interviews over the years, and the BBC asked me to comment on an interview they were going to do on the radio. That was the beginning of creating the Relationship Manifesto, creating the 12 points, and I actually the BBC liked it that much. They actually did an interview with me, and not all the 12 points were focused on that, came out of that interview, but quite a number of them did. I then went back and thought, well, there's a possibility that this could come out as a book, and that's when the 12 points actually emerged themselves in a very organic way, but very clear to me that they worked out and they fitted. Not everything that's I say in the book is going to please everybody, because a lot of it is counterintuitive. By that, it goes against what is commonly thought of as love, sex and romance. So it's not for everybody, but I think everybody has to hear it, because it's the reality that we have now.
Yes.
We have to move away from Walt Disney love to 21st century love.
Walt Disney love? That's a term I've not heard before. Meaning what?
I lay a lot of the blame on the problems of modern relationships, certainly with young women, with the likes of with the media, and you've only got to look at the Walt Disney and the ideas of happy ever after, heterosexual romance, and the soulmate love. It's entertaining.
Yes.
But it's illustrating a past.
Yes.
It's not illustrating the reality that we have today. People are moving in and out of relationships with increasing speed. We've got young women will be losing their virginity and majority of women in the UK, for example, in the US, are having sex certainly by the time they're 16, and having sex at 13 or 14 is increasingly common. We've got also the other end of the spectrum. We've got people living longer. We've got older people. What is old? You know, I'm 61. Have I stopped having sex at 61? No way. Does people stop having sex at 71? No. At 81? Depends how fit you are. You know, I know guys here in Thailand in the 70s and 80s, and they're in relationships. And why not? So you've got this span of a sexual career or sexual life that's going to start about 13 and is going to finish 80. You're going to be with one person all that time? No way. No way. How many people are you going to be with? Well, I've got students. You know, I've known students from all around the world. By the time you get to 20 nowadays, they've often had a couple of dozen sexual relationships.
A couple of dozen?
A couple of dozen. It's
Right.
not uncommon.
This brings a whole new meaning to a baker's dozen. You
Yeah,
know that, don't
absolutely,
you?
yeah.
So
This is the reality, but you know, you juxtapose that with the Walt Disney idea of, you know, you meet someone and you fall in love and
Yes.
you live happily ever after.
yes,
These fairy tales are just
just that.
that.
Yes,
But they get sold as, and they get bought in, and then the problem with it, people then get dissatisfied with the reality of their life. They get unhappy. They blame themselves when a relationship fails. I mean, one of the things I say in the book, relationships don't fail; they just change.
yes. So the book is going. If somebody reads the book, they'll be better enabled to deal with relationships in that way. You know.
If in reading the book and understanding the 12 points, whether they agree with all the 12 points or not, they will have to look at the ideas that I'm presenting, and it'll in looking at the ideas, it'll help them handle their own relationships. And it's I'm not interested in relationships that went on in the 19th century, the 18th century, even the 20th century. I'm interested in relationships today,
Yes.
for people today. I want to help people today. I'm not interested in the myths. The myths are of no use. In fact, the myths are damaging. So let's deal with reality. People, you know, life is hard enough without surrounding ourselves with myths that are unattainable. We have to move on to.
But don't myths feed perceptions, and perceptions do affect people?
Of course. Yeah, they feed perceptions. So that's when you end up with. You get 22, 23-year-old individuals. It's often women who do believe that they're going to live happily ever after. They're going to get married and meet someone, and that may have been the case. May be, possibly the case for the grandmothers and great grandmothers, but for a young man or woman living today, coming out of university, the idea they're going to have one lover for the rest of their life. Come on.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, and if it does, it's the exception that proves the rule. For most people will be in and out of relationships, and they have to come to terms with that. They have to understand themselves, and there's certain principles that they need to follow, understand, or adopt in order to cope with this type of lifestyle.
Yes.
Because these lifestyles are here now. We're living them out.
Yes. It's going to. These podcasts are going to be a really interesting journey, I think. Picking up some, these points. It sounds some of them are going to be quite contentious, aren't
Yeah,
they?
sure.
As you said, and not everybody's going to like what you say.
Not everybody's going to like it, but I can't please everybody. All I can tell it is as I see it.
Yes.
I see it all around me. I see it in my own family. I see it in my own relationships. I see it in my friends. I'm not creating this world. I'm just describing what is out there.
Yes.
I'm not making it as it is. I'm not creating this transient relationship world where we're more likely to be living our lives as single people than in a happily married couple. I've not created that.
Yes.
That's what's out there.
Yes.
And it's out there now in the UK, it's out there now in the States, and it's out there increasingly here in Asia.
Yes.
The divorce rate all over Asia is going up, Thailand's got now, from pretty much a low base of divorces, it's now got the highest divorce rate in Asia. And actually it surpasses even America, that's got the highest divorce rate in the West. UK's got the highest divorce rate.
Thailand has a larger
it's gone
percentage of divorces.
It's gone up to about 70 in every 1,000.
Does that take into account, in Thailand there's a large number of what would you call it, common law marriages, where they've not actually gone and signed a piece of paper, but
these are legal divorces.
Yes.
I
didn't know that.
Taiwan the same, China the same. Who's the other question is why are these divorces coming about? Well, you don't know in every instance, but what we do know is that the bulk of these divorces are instigated by women.
I didn't know that either.
They're instigated by women. They're not instigated by men.
Yes.
It's women. Why are women instigating divorces? Because they can do. What do I mean by that? Well, they're no longer, the women who are instigating these divorces, they're no longer dependent financially on men. They can survive on their own. This is back to the globalization, because one of the things that globalization's done is create educational opportunities for the current generation of women.
Yes.
They're going through university.
Yes.
They're getting jobs. They're in the professions. In the States, for example, data's recently come out to show that women in the professions in the States are likely to be earning more than men in a very short time, and that's already happening in the UK.
Yes.
In some professions now in the UK that were dominated by men, there's now women in them in great number, and those women are coming through from university and getting good jobs and earning more than men.
Yes. It's
a slow change, but it's absolutely, all the evidence is pointing one way. It's a major gender shift.
Yes. I think I've already come to the realization that one of my phrases during these sessions is going to be, oh, I didn't know that. We want to keep these to sort of 20-30 minutes, and so they're short and sharp and to the point. And so I'm going to ask you one last comment, one last question. Out of the 12 points in the relationship manifesto, this is going to be really difficult for you, I think, is which did you have, I was going to say most fun writing, but that doesn't sound right.
No, that's okay.
Yes?
Yeah. It's there was one moment when I realised the great truth about relationships, and this is the thing that I know this is something that people will have a problem with. But bear with me. I don't think any relationship, any marriage should last more than 10 years. There should be, I know there's also the legal ramifications, but just bear with me. Just accept the principle for a moment. We should go into a relationship with a 10-year limit.
Expectation.
Yeah, we go in with a 10-year limit. Now, we hope that it's going to go on longer, but then if it goes on after the 10 years, we sign up for another 10 years. There should be an automatic cut-off point after 10 years.
Sounds a bit like the army.
Well, who wants to be in the army more than 10 years? So you have this automatic cut-off point, and the only people that would be really unhappy with that will be the divorce lawyers, because there'll be no divorces, because you'll know when you get married, you can cut out after 10 years.
An interesting perspective.
It's just a hard way, a neat way, a powerful way of illustrating one of the key points about the book that's in the book, and that is that we change. Relationships evolve and they end, and other relationships move in. We're into a continuum of relationships and our lifestyles now. So rather than go through this continual pain of a divorce and separation and all the rest of it, just factor it in at the beginning. It doesn't mean you're going to finish your relationship in 10 years.
Yes.
But that's you can do if you want.
Yes.
That's because that's what's happening
Yes.
anyway. It's happening anyway. The only difference is that the divorce lawyers are making a packet.
Right. Any divorce lawyers listening to this?
They won't like that.
Well, feel free to use the comments. I just have an image now in my head of all the sort of vicars in all the churches going, and do you promise to cherish each other for better or worse until death us... Oh, no, sorry, we've changed that bit. Until at least a maximum of 10 years. But which of those chapters would that be out of?
That's on the first one. That's why. See, the title of the first chapter is Why Relationships Fail. Why do relationships fail? Because they go on too long.
Mm. No, you're looking at me with that as though you've asked me a question and I have no idea.
They go on too long. They have relationships almost have an energy, a life of their own. You see that, and that's one of the other chapter titles. Is there's 3 identities in every relationship. There's you, there's your partner, and there's a relationship. The relationship itself has its own identity, and you create it uniquely from the dynamic of the 2 people.
Mm.
Now, those relationships that are created, there's no expectation that there might be an expectation, but the reality of them lasting for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, I wouldn't even encourage it. I think if you're in a relationship for 60 years, it's probably too long. You've missed out on life.
Mm.
Move on to something. Move on. It doesn't mean you're going to fall out, and that's the other thing. You should move on and still remain friends. We have to have a different way of doing it. At the moment, we've got a sex war, we've got a gender war, we've got a relationship war, and what's the consequences of that is people are retreating. We've got more people living single lives, more people looking for love but can't find it, more people disappointed in love, more people anxious, more people carrying baggage, guilt. I want to alleviate all that.
I think that's a great place to stop, because that's also, you're saying that's also leads into the first of the 12 points, why relationships fail.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where we will start.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was brilliant. Thanks very much for that. And I didn't know that.